All right, welcome back to the Heroic Nation podcast. I am finally getting done editing. I've got a ton of great guests that I've had on and no time to do edits. So if you are interested in editing podcasts for free, let me know. You're hired. Anyway, Nick Tuttle is my guest today. Nick is the founder of the company called the Mike Loop. If you are in law enforcement, I'm sure that you have seen his memes. He is a meme champion. His stuff is so funny. You can always tell like the meme pages that are actually cops and the ones that have done the job. And he definitely gets it. You know what I mean? So that's what kind of drew me in. And then all of a sudden, like I find out the product is like so effective and simple. And it was like I watched him on a podcast, I don't know, several years ago, and I was like, there's no way that the mic loop can be that effective for what it is being so simple. And he sent me a couple, and dude, I'm telling you, like, I'm not being paid for this either. It is one of the best inventions for a street cop. Honestly, keeping that mic secured like that is so much better than the crap that I had before. We're getting ripped off and falling off and stuff like that. So, Nick's also a father of 14 years in law enforcement, and ended his career as a patrol sergeant and 6 years on a SWAT team. Like I said, he phased out of law enforcement as his company got much bigger. So he's got some great insight into transitioning from law enforcement to something else. You know, when to cash your chips in, man. And we also talked a lot about his current family situation with an accident that his son was in. And I mean, we all go through individual tragedies in our lives, and while the specifics are different, how we deal with them and the effect that it has on us as psychologically and physiologically, like that's pretty consistent, like with that stuff. So it's a great story and a great dude. Hey, this is Anthony again with Heroic Industries. Right now, we are offering the Tactical Edge 90 is a 90-day program covering all individualized based training calendars based on your goals and your needs, nutritional plans to augment and support your goals and your needs and your training, and weekly group calls as well as individual calls. This is a program that typically runs for several $1,000s, and right now I'm really making a push to make sure that the right people get into the program regardless of price. I never want price to be a hurdle for anyone, especially a cop or a firefighter or a tactical professional, that money is a limiting factor. So this is going to be a name your price program, but I want to make sure that the people in are the right people. So if you're interested in this, then reach out, DM me, and we'll start a conversation. And with all that said, here is the episode with Nick Tuttle. So how you doing, man?
I'm making it. I'm making it. I know. We talked offline the other day, and uh, situation's still the same. We don't really know where everything's going as far as being here in Texas, away from home with my son and all. But we're working through it. I think each and every day we're getting closer to the end of that process. So um, we've been really public about the situation going on with my kid. Um, Especially whenever everything first happened. So I mean, it's not a secret. I don't know if any of the people that are following your podcast, or understand. But back in last April, on the April 2nd, my oldest son, he's active duty Navy. He was involved in a car crash, and he sustained a pretty severe TBI. So since that time, I've been away from home with him, taking care of him and helping him through his rehabilitation process. Which, since he's active duty, we're bound to the base that he is recovering at. So we're stuck in San Antonio, Texas, living in some barracks, which is 10 out of 10. Would recommend to anyone. And we've just been here since he got hurt in April, and we've been here since he got outpatient um, in July. So we've been living here since July, and I think we're seeing the end of this end of the line with this situation. It's just it's were you ever in the military?
No.
Yeah, me neither. So this is all crash course for me. But since he's active duty, he can't just pack up and go home. The Navy still owns him, but he has to go through the medical retirement process, which is just like a whole rigmarole of bullshit.
Yeah.
But he's healthy, man. He's doing good. I mean, he got a pretty bad head injury, so I mean, he's gonna need some help. But he's man. I mean, all we're just incredibly blessed that he's good. I mean, it was bad there for a while. He was in a coma for 24 days, but
Wow.
yeah, he was out for they had to keep him out. They had to keep him in a induced coma due to just pressure and swelling and things like that. But he pulled through, man. He's beating the odds, and he's doing good, man. So I can't ask for anything else. He's here with us. So
Yeah.
could have been
Yeah,
could have been a lot
absolutely.
worse. Could have been a
Yeah.
lot worse.
Yeah. So what, I mean, obviously like this is a big part of your life right now. And I want to make sure
Yeah,
we kind of work backwards and touch on like the business and your
sure.
police career and that kind of stuff. But like since this is so like you're dealing with all this right now, it was do you mind talking a little bit more about like the actual injury itself and what he's dealing with on the back end of that? Because there's a lot of people with from military to law enforcement, even like I think like college football buddies that deal with TBI, and
Yeah,
there's a whole lot of people of like misunderstanding about it, and especially in like because like I coach high school football a little bit, and like the amount of misapplication of concussion protocols and TBI for like just getting hit in the head. Like every time you get
yeah,
hit in the head is not a TBI. And what we're
right.
talking about here is a severe TBI. So the spectrum is like huge. So like can you kind of would you, I guess would you mind talking about like a little bit more about the mechanism of injury and then the symptoms that your son's going through and like what
Yeah,
you
not
guys
at all.
and what you guys are doing for rehab, and that kind
Yeah,
of thing.
no, not at all, man. I mean, knowledge is power. It's nothing that's been a secret at all. I mean, we've chosen to be pretty open about it. So I mean, I don't have any issues talking about it. So he was stationed in Honolulu. He had been assigned to Pearl Harbor for about 4 months. He got there in January, and he had a car, lost control of it. He ran into a like a barrier wall that caused a rollover accident, and he landed on top of it. So he hit it head on at about 60 miles an hour. He lost control and ran into the wall and flipped the car, and it landed at rest. Whenever paramedics got on scene, he wasn't breathing. They had to intubate him and took him directly to the level 1 trauma center that's there on the island. They did a phenomenal job, but he was pretty busted up. He had um, swelling in his brain. He had hematoma, and so he had an active brain bleed and 7 skull fractures. But the strange thing about it is like the only thing that was injured was his head. Like the rest of his body was just like totally fine. I think he had a couple of scratches. So I mean that was great. He didn't have like this polytraumatic situation where he's got broken bones everywhere else. So everything was localized to his head. So um, after after the swelling and everything went down, so I mean they I mean of course they initiated all kinds of protocols, and what they did, they had to monitor the pressures inside of his skull and things like that. And um, his injury is definitely more than what you would see on a football field.
Yeah.
Um, but for a even if you collide helmets and you get a concussion, I mean that is an injury to the brain tissue. I mean that straight up, you know, and you have to treat it as such, or it doesn't heal properly. But in his case, he when they were able to finally get all of his MRIs done, and after all the swelling and everything went down, he was diagnosed with what's called a diffuse axonal injury, or DAI. And there are 3 grades to a DAI. There's 1, 2, and 3. 3 being the worst. that involves like your full brain and some spinal cord. Um, his was a grade 2, so like next to the worst that you can get. And the way that a DAI was explained to me was it's global injury throughout the brain. So basically, where the brain tissues, where the white and the gray matter meet, think of it like an orange inside of an orange peel. What happens is there's a shearing injury where the gray and the white matter shear against each other. So it separates those axons where they join and send signals. So he had that globally, across his tissue. He had some injury to the corpus callosum, which is the separating um, piece of brain that connects the left and the right sides of the brain. And the majority of the damage done was to the bifrontal lobes. So, all those parts that involve planning, decision making, reasoning, those kind of things. And because his crash was a head-on collision that resulted in the flip, but I'm pretty confident that his head hit something. You know, we don't know exactly, and the reconstructionists, I mean, they documented what they could, but they couldn't. I don't think in their report they determined what caused his injury. They just broke down the crash. But but yeah, so going after that, I mean, it's been a huge learning experience, man. I mean, it's like drinking from a fire hose, learning about the brain and healing and everything like that through this process. I mean, I feel like I should be like a PhD at this point in like neuropsych,
Right,
like
right.
neuro shit. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah, uh, he started to come out of his coma. He has he's on a ton of medication, so he had to like wean off of that, literally like detox and go through the withdrawals of being on just copious amounts of medication to keep him induced in his coma. But as he started to come around, things started to kind of come back online. It's like rebooting a computer, man. It just takes time. And you know, he started speaking as soon as we got to Texas, like the first day. That was May 14th, I think, May 14th or 15th. He started talking to me. Um, Still, a lot of post amnesia, a lot of confusion, and it's just something that's just kind of had to work itself out. The parts of the brain that get damaged, they're toast. They're not going to heal. They're not going to come back. What ends up happening is, your brain works kind of like a team, and when one of your team members goes down, everybody else just kind of pick up the slack. So that's kind of what the rest of his brain is doing, is learning how to do the other parts of the brain's job. Whenever you hear about people getting head injuries and they say, well, I had a stroke, and they say, well, I had to relearn how to walk. Well, you had to basically teach other parts of your brain to do what the walking part of your brain used to do. And that's kind of what we've been working on. So uh, the best thing for brain rehabilitation is just time. That's the only thing that works in his benefit is time. Um, Plus the fact, I mean, he's 26 years old, so his brain is still really young. That worked in his benefit. He was healthy when he had his crash. He was really fit, and the type of rehabilitation that they've been working with him on, it's kind of standard. It's you had your psychological stuff just to kind of see where he was at mentally and emotionally. Um, Occupational therapy, which basically like daily tasks. They do everything from helping him learn how to shave again to uh, deciding where things go. Currently, they've been working with him to retrain his eye muscles, to converge properly. Recreational therapy, so basically teaching your muscles through games and fun and thinking games. Playing Uno or whatever, something as simple as playing Uno, but having to remember the procedure of the game and working on those memorization skills. And then I think the most the most crucial ones were the physical therapy and the speech therapy. Because you know the speech therapy really uh, revealed kind of where his thought processes were going and how he started perceiving information. So that was really a really important piece. And the physical therapy, working on getting his body to work with his brain and communicate again, because he had, due to some of the injury being on the left side of his brain as well, the right side of his brain, or the right side of his body, excuse me, was is inhibited a little bit. It's he experiences what they call hemiplegia, but it's basically just muscle weakness. Um, I think that's the right word. I've seen a lot of words in his reports, but I try to sound really smart, but it doesn't work out for me all the time. But yeah, basically muscle weakness on the right side. So his left leg doesn't work as good as it used to. Still works. He still walks. He walks fine. He's been walking for several months, and it causes a lot of muscle spasticity on his right side, like in his hip and his calf and his shoulder. So he gets muscle spasms. Whereas basically, like his his occupational therapist kind of discovered this: his bicep and his tricep, they're they kind of stay in a constant state of tension, so they work against each other all the time. So that translates into tension up into his shoulder and up in his trapezius and things like that, which can be worked out through, some mobility work and massage and things like that. But I mean, ultimately, it kind of comes back. So it's just going to be something that we have to train out and just keep working on. It's just going to be just a grind, you know.
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. That's so just listening to that, it sounds to me like issues that you deal with are mostly like motor control and like muscle organization of like the neural pathways to muscle contraction and stuff like that. Is that accurate or
Yeah,
because
I mean that's definitely part of it. I mean,
yeah,
there's a whole lot of stuff involved, outside of just the physical aspect of things. But as far as his physical control, yeah, he fine motor skills have been affected. So we work on, like, we play cards a lot, and so he's got to manipulate the cards in his hands, or we'll put together Legos, things like that. Um, his handwriting's been affected, but he still writes. It's his right hand's his dominant hand, so that's the side that's affected the most. And so, there's those things. I mean, we're not out throwing a football or anything. I mean,
right.
I think that he can. I mean, we've played catch before. He just doesn't have the strength and that fast twitch that you need to make, I guess, hard throws or whatever. But we'll throw a medicine ball around at the gym. I take him to the gym, and we'll do PT exercises at home. I say home, here in our barracks, and I'll take him to the gym, and then we'll do PT exercises there as on top of what he does at his actual therapy. So we're constantly working. I mean, while I'm sitting here talking to you, he's in the other room with like an assignment, doing his stuff that he's got to do.
Yeah.
But and then, to take it outside of just physical limitations. I mean, there's just the whole mental aspect of being who he used to be.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I mean, his personality is still 100%.
Good.
It's
That's
just
awesome.
his his like ability to process information. It's a lot slower. He can still get there. You just got to give him time. And memory, things like that. There's like an 8 month span prior to his wreck that he has no recollection of it. It's ninja vanished.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he knows that he was stationed in Honolulu,
Mhm.
but he doesn't really remember anything about it. Like, I'll say, "Hey man, do you remember that car you bought?" He's like, "No."
Yeah.
Basically, if I could break it down simply, if we had never told him he had a wreck, he'd never know about it.
Yeah. Well, and
You
that's
know.
super common. Every dude I've worked with that has had a bad wreck, every person that I've seen have a bad wreck, like your brain does such a good job of eliminating the memory of pain. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to
Mhm.
protect you against this memory of how bad this thing hurt you, and I'm just going to make it go away completely. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a double-edged sword for sure. But yeah, like whether you get choked out in jujitsu, knocked out in a fight, or a wreck like this, like the memory of the actual impact is going to be gone. Like
Yeah.
your brain vaporizes it, and that's really what like I just had my neck surgery, and that's what Versed does a lot of times. Like it's an amnesic, so that it will just like make you not remember. If you happen to like wake up during the surgery, you won't remember it. So it kind of operates on the same pathways.
Right.
And the fact that he doesn't have any like major personality changes is awesome, man. Like that at least has to be somewhat of a relief, because that is such a delicate thing with the brain. Like even when you go back to that uh, Brady, when Brady was shot, when protecting Ronald Reagan, like that was a
Mhm.
big thing that changed him, was that bullet damaged the parts of his brain that changed his personality completely. And even in like Psych 101, we talk about like the 1890s or whenever the railroad story of Phineas Gage, when he took that railroad tie through his head all the way through. You remember that? I don't know if you're.
I've heard the story. The name doesn't ring a bell. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
never took psychology, but I think I've seen it on some Ripley's Believe It or Not shit.
Yeah, so this dude actually had a railroad tie explode through his whole skull, and he
Right. So
lived.
it went from bottom to top, right?
Yep. And then the doctors could actually touch their fingers through his head, and they were like, "How is this guy still alive?" And
Totally sanitary.
right, right, yeah.
They didn't
Um,
give a shit back then, dude.
dude, what an amazing time.
Yeah.
But the big thing with him was like it changed his personality so severely. Like he was basically like ostracized from society. They were like, dude, you got to get out of here. And then he
Yeah.
ended up dying. But yeah, the fact that he doesn't have that is like, I would be so grateful. It's like, we still have you. We just got to work on some new physical, uh, pathways that we got to like reform and retrain. And, uh,
Yeah.
and then the brain is so interesting too, because like you said, the you retrain the parts of your brain that aren't designed for certain things, but also like it's just like with blood vessels. Like if you sever a blood vessel, it will create new pathways to work around the problem. And it does that, like your heart does that with blockages, where if it's not like a major blockage, like it'll create pathways around it so that you can come back from like, and you won't have a heart attack and die. And your brain does the same thing with apraxias and aphasias. I don't know if you guys talk about that at all, with like can't find the words, I can't remember the words, I use the wrong words for different contexts. Um, the, uh, your brain will find workarounds, like the neural pathways will change to get from point A to point B. Whether like it's in a straight line and that damage occurs, it'll find a zigzag route to get to it. So it just has to do pit stops along the way. Is the way
Yeah,
I.
that's
Yeah.
that's wild. So my wife, she's very much in. She deals with some autoimmune issues, so she really deep dives into health for her own personal knowledge and things like that. So throughout this process, she was a solid rock for me to lean on, and she kept telling me, like, when Nick is whenever he was in his coma, she'd be like, you need to talk to him, you need to, giving him like some positive feedback, tell him he's going to do okay and all these things. And one thing that she emphasized is to focus on the fact that our bodies were designed to heal themselves. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. It's like, we may not have the capability to grow a brand new leg, but I mean, our body's going to figure out how to make things work. You're designed to fix yourself. So, and that's kind of what we've always told him, and something that I've kind of stood on through this process too, is that, like, hey, like, we're designed to get better. That's it. It's not I mean, dude, even if whenever your body goes into like dire preservation mode, it'll literally start eating itself to keep the brain alive. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's wild how that works. I mean, right up until it has no more resources to pull from, it's going to keep fighting to try to stay alive. So
Well, and especially your brain, like you're
yeah.
like it has to keep your brain center going in order to keep you alive. So it'll do anything it can to do that. And I would even take that thought process like a step further. Like, yeah, we're designed to heal, but like all life is designed to heal and adapt. So like, I,
Right.
like you look at a dog, right? a dog loses a leg, doesn't even realize like I only got 4 legs now. It just figures out how to be a tripod and hop around and has no issues. You know what I mean? So like all life is designed to adapt and live and heal. So I think that's a great frame to put on it. And yeah, and like just keeps things pushing in the right direction.
Yeah. You ever seen those two-legged dogs?
No,
Those things,
I
those,
have
bro.
not.
I've seen a couple of videos. There's one dog, I think it was a pit bull, had a front leg and a back leg, and that dude could like shit and get. He
Front
would.
leg and a back.
Oh, dude, people would to throw a bone. He just like, just freaking two-legging it all the way. And then they've got the dogs. There's one dog's got no front legs. Some
Yeah.
bitch walks around like a human. It's like, you know, yeah. It's kind of reminds me of like you'll have kids that are born without. If you're born without something, you never know any different, right? It's just like, hey, this is just how I survive or whatever.
Yeah.
But whenever I went to college, which that didn't last long, but after school, I went to college for a little while, and I remember it was like first day of some. I had this grand idea of taking an accounting class. Why I decided to do that, I don't know. But I'm in this accounting class, and I'm just like not thrilled to be there. And I at the time I was a I don't know 20-year-old kid. So I was fit, healthy, played football. I mean, went to the gym all the time. Literally no physical ailments or disabilities, nothing. And I'm in this class, miserable. And here comes this kid. Look, he looked like the singer Beck.
Yeah.
Yeah, he straight up looked like Beck, but had no arms at the shoulders, nothing. Some bitch comes in there with loose floppy shoes, sits down at his desk, takes his foot out of his shoe, reaches up, takes his book bag off of his shoulder, fumbles through his bag, gets paper and pen out, puts a pin in his toes, and starts writing. And I'm like, damn, what am I complaining about? Like here I am, miserable to be here, and this guy's got to work 100 times harder than I can just to take notes. So it put a lot of things in perspective for me, just that one instance, and I would see that kid around campus a lot. So it just kind of feeds into what you're saying is, we adapt, with whatever we're given. So yeah, the brain and body's a crazy thing, dude. Crazy thing. It blows my mind sometimes, especially this situation's put things in a much different light than I had before, for sure.
Yeah. What are you doing to manage your own health and sanity? Because like this is hard on everybody. Like this isn't
Oh
just a
yeah.
him issue. Like you changed your whole life and like had to uproot everything to do this. Um, so what are you doing to manage your stress and your health?
Um, I had some therapy sessions for a long time. That was extremely helpful, man. I mean, I know there's some stigma around, you know, guys, cops, you know, talking to people and doing therapy, but just having an outlet, somebody who is not really connected to you. I mean, it's one thing like, hey, I'm going to confide in my spouse, but you can talk to your spouse all you want, but there's something about speaking to an impartial, unbiased person who will listen to your stuff, who will validate what you're thinking or experiencing, and will also, call you out in your shit that somebody may not call you out on. They'll just tell you like, well, hey, you're kind of looking at this incorrectly. Let's look at this a different way, or whatever the case is. So that was super beneficial. Being here on a military base, we have access to gym facilities, so that's a huge part of our routine. I take my son up there. We work out about 5 days a week, and physical fitness has always been a major outlet of stress for me. Um, and Yeah, I mean, those are probably the two biggest things I've done to manage my stress. It's been a roller coaster for me, dude. I mean, to be honest, it's really been a heavy adjustment. And once Nick kind of got out of the woods with as far as his health goes, the biggest challenge was how soon can we get home. So, dealing with that, I've got, you know, we have a 5-year-old at home, and so he's getting bigger. We've got a daughter; she's graduating high school this year. So, you know, missing large portions of family life back at home is hard from a perspective of just like, uh, I guess, emotionally and just missing home. Um, but also knowing that, you know, my wife is having to do all that shit at home by herself, you know, missing being with her, and knowing that she's having the struggle on her end as well. And that there's not really much I can do about it. I mean, you know, I can't mail her any help. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
she she
Yeah.
she's running the house, man. She's running our business, and she's taking care of those kids, and she's had her own uh trials and tribulations adjusting to that too. But I mean, she's resilient, man. My wife, she's a savage when she has to be, for sure. I mean, and she's she would say otherwise, but she's kicking some serious ass. She's pretty humble in that respect, but she's doing good, you know. But yeah, uh, I tried my hand at journaling. I'm just not good at it. I just, how do I feel today? I don't know, So, still something I'm working on. The only way you get better at something is by doing it. So I've given that a whirl. But just trying to stay busy, man, and really use this time to kind of focus on things about myself that I may have not have given the attention that it needed before, like um, I don't know, relaxation techniques. Being back home, we're just blowing and going all the time, and then by the time it's time to chill out, we sit in bed and watch a little TV and go to sleep, and then it's up, making the donuts again the next day.
Right.
But here there's definite downtime, so I'm able to kind of focus on, um, I can actually have time to sit here and work on some mobility or, um, relaxation or whatever, trying to calm my brain down and think about things, um, I guess a little differently. But those are things that I've grown to rely on as far as like managing my stress. And I mean, it was super stressful for a long time, dude. I mean, it was rough for a while of just adjusting. And I think I think with any situation you've got going on, if you can push through the hard stuff, you kind of get to some homeostasis where you can be okay with where you're at.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah. So, just kind of unpacking some of the stuff you mentioned, like most of the stuff you talked about was like mental health related, stress management related. And then
yeah,
the last thing you said was like, typical military base, right? Like you're staying very mission focused, right? You're mission focused with the business, with your family, with your son. Like you have several missions that are all kind of
yeah,
like pushing the same direction. So that's easy to stay focused on, because you're clearly good at doing that, right? But there's more downtime that you have where it's like hurry up and wait, you know,
yeah,
and
for sure.
and and there's not a ton that you have direct control over because your job is to just be there and wait, and
Yeah,
just be there and support. So no amount of anxiety, stress, worry, action that you can take can push this process at all.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
all it's going to do is burn you out. So that anxiety and stress is going to activate your sympathetic fight or flight system, right? So I'm sure that's where you were straight out of the gate. That's where I would have
oh
been
yeah,
for months. I probably would have been there, just like
yes.
sleeping 2 hours a night, drinking caffeine, and just being like hairpin trigger mad and stressed out and like 100% go all the time.
Were you here? Like, were you here?
But your body will only last so long doing that. And the fact like you're kind of making the connection of like, all right, I have to learn how to downregulate and shift my nervous system or I'm gonna die, and then
Yeah,
I'm gonna be a casualty of this too. And that's really good. And how you do that, breath work, journaling, counseling, like it doesn't really matter. Like you just find the style that works for you where you can feel your nervous system shift. And the big thing for most people is you have to identify what that shift feels like, whether you use cold exposure or journaling or breath work or a combination of it. Once you feel it and you're like, I'm pegged, I'm sympathetic, I'm a 10 out of 10, and now I can shift it down to a 6. Like, oh, that was interesting. I feel calmer now. Let's do more of that, and
yeah,
let's like you just try to find what works, piece it together, and then you learn how to do it more effectively. No one's perfect at it. And the real interesting thing about this, and this is going back to brain dynamics, is that like when you get stressed, you go into sympathetic fight or flight. Like you can't prevent that from occurring. Like it just happens.
Right.
But the issue is once it happens, you identify it, know what it feels like, and then consciously ask yourself, do I want this? Is it going to be helpful? Or is this do I not want this? Do I need to back it down? And
Yeah,
that
recognizing it is key. I mean,
yeah.
that exactly what you're describing is exactly the mindset that I had, whenever I was a cop, is recognizing, okay, cool. I'm in full adrenaline dump right now. What do I need to do? I need to think. I need to calm myself down. Whenever I would get, we'd be going to a hot call, or if I'd be in a pursuit or something, I could feel it. I could feel it rising up. You feel that adrenaline just dumping in your body. And so identifying that and having that self-talk of just like, cool, I would literally be talking out loud going, I need to calm down, I need to calm down, I need to calm down, and telling myself that. So I'm speaking it and I'm hearing myself saying it, and so I'm slowly gaining that control back, so I can still have that adrenaline reaction as far as being able to have the benefits of that adrenaline, but it doesn't go into full control. And I think that we see that a lot with long. Well, hell, man. I mean, Kenny shared that video today that we were talking
Yeah.
about. That was my take on that. That exact situation was that guy's like, he's not thinking, man. That's his frog brain working. He is in full overload. So, you know, I guess the people that are listening to this can go back and look at it. Total out of context, folks. Sorry about that, but yeah, I mean, uh, you witnessed it. I witnessed it of cops just being in full overstimulated mode where they are working with their caveman brain, dude. It is like, you know, that once you get to that point, man, all your gross motor skills are gone. All your I'm sorry, your fine motor skills are gone. You are working on survival, and yeah, I mean, you can in this situation, definitely definitely triggered a lot of that here. As far as dealing with this situation with my kid. I mean, I'm sure if you'd have checked my cortisol levels, they would have been through the roof for a while,
I'm sure they
just
still
because
are,
of
man. Like
yeah,
I'm
probably,
sure they
yeah,
still are.
probably,
Yeah.
yeah, probably. But managing that and just like GI Joe used to say, man, knowledge is half the battle, and
Yes.
that's really it. If you can understand what's going on with you, you don't have to fight that anymore. You can work to figure out the problem, and knowing the problem is the biggest step, and then you can do a workaround to find the solution. So that's kind of what I've been focusing on. There are some things that you can do with your lifestyle, man, that kind of help that. Something that I've always, well, I say always, over the last several years, I've been more focused on, the food that I eat. Nutrition is going to be a huge impact of just your overall health. You know, the amount of food you eat, the quality of food you eat, and everything. I think that kind of goes without saying, but there are plenty of people who don't understand that. They think that they're just fine eating, trash from fast food place XYZ, and they think that food equals nutrition, which is not the case. But that's something that I've tried to focus on heavily here, and a big determining factor of that was making sure my son was getting proper nutrition to promote the best environment for healing and recovery for him. So whenever we started living together, I made a heavy focus on, you know, a protein rich diet, whole foods, and whenever I would make him food, it's quality um, meals that he's getting. So basically, just to create that environment for healing for him and give him the best foot forward he could have. And that, of course, I'm making him food. I'm making me food, and we've had a pretty good diet for the last several months. Not that I had a bad diet before. I mean, I cooked at home anyway. I mean, we made all of our meals there too. But again, that's bringing that lifestyle into a situation that it directly will apply to. So having the knowledge of that type of lifestyle, it's going to set you up for success in those moments that it matters. I guess
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to get around to.
Yeah.
All your training is going to lead up to this one moment. I've taken jujitsu for however many years, and now finally I'm in this situation where I have to use it on this guy. So you're preparing your body for that moment. And I think that that's kind of where, we've kind of landed here, is that I was in a good position with a knowledge base to kind of fill this role.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that's really important that you said like food doesn't equal nutrition. I mean, it sort of does, but it doesn't at the same time. What food does equal is energy, right? Food
Right.
equals energy, right? So everything you eat is a calorie. Now, if you're eating a bunch of low nutrient dense foods, like the nutrition is very poor, like the profile is very poor. Um, and like you gotta remember like, it doesn't matter until it matters. Like as far as food quality and nutrients and like the way you've kind of like organized your life and your habits and where you get your food and nutrition from until all of a sudden like you're like, damn, I wish I would have invested a little bit more
Right.
in my physical being so that I could recover from this damage, or whatever it is. But I don't know. Have you ever looked into, and I don't know that this would be an exact correlation, but you're the second person I've talked to this week about it. I talked to I think a trooper from Pennsylvania who had a crash. It was not as severe as your son's, but he's I think off work currently for TBI,
Mm.
so I started doing a little bit more like research into some old stuff that I heard from years ago during CrossFit and CrossFit football and John Wellborn. I don't know if you're familiar with him at all. He runs
Mm.
Power Athlete Radio. He's played in the NFL for like a dozen years, I think, is like super huge, like a CrossFit OG from way back in the day. But he got a brain scan after he left the NFL, and it showed, brain trauma and like, all kinds of stuff from playing a decade of NFL football as an offensive tackle. Like I would imagine there's some brain trauma that comes with that.
A lot of
And
collisions there.
a lot of just using your head as a battering ram. So against the biggest, strongest athletes on the planet, right?
Yeah.
So 10 years of that'll cause damage. It showed damage, and then 10 years later, he does a follow-up study after using I think a cyclic ketogenic diet or a ketogenic style diet, and creatine, and I can't remember if he used any other supplement protocols or not, but yeah, he basically healed his brain damage, and it was pretty incredible. People were like, I didn't think this was like actually going to happen. We figured that your brain damage was, and which is obviously less severe is what you're looking at, right? Like it is less severe. So I don't know that it would be like a one-to-one, like good analogy, but that said, I've heard that multiple times using like a type of ketogenic based approach specifically for brain trauma. You ever look into that or at all or anything?
No, I have listened to some other fitness and nutrition and health podcasts, and they do talk often about how um, diets rich in quality fats. I'm not saying just go and eat some bullshit fat, but you know, eggs, fish, red meat, something you're going to get some quality fats for. It's good for the brain because the brain is made of fat. So you know, feeding it um, the nutrition that it's kind of made of. Maybe that's not a really good idea of saying like, well, if you eat fat, it's going to make your brain better because your brain is fat. So that's not what I'm saying. But uh, those type of diets that are, lower in carbohydrates and sugars, um, and having a higher fat content like ketogenic diets is beneficial for the brain. So heavy emphasis on, your uh, omega 3s and stuff like that. What is the type of fat that they were referring to? I can't remember. But oh, MCTs. That was a big part of
Yeah.
these get the guy that I would listen to. He would always push like MCT. MCT is good for your good for your brain health and things like that. Now he never spoke about it in terms of trauma to the brain, but just for overall brain health and longevity. This
Yeah.
guy he would talk about a lot of like anti-Alzheimer's type situation.
Yeah, it would stand to reason that those things would correlate. The question would just be like how much. And like
Right.
there's good data coming out about creatine use for cognitive function, brain trauma. TBI, like that kind of stuff, like 10 to 20 grams a day even of creatine.
Damn,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Well, yeah, but the downside is the only thing you're going to have is a little bit of GI stress and
Yeah,
um
I'm a
like
firm believer in creatine. I've been taking it for years.
yeah.
I'm a firm believer in it. Yeah.
So, Andy Galpin, that he mentioned this like a while back on a podcast where the MMA guys and the fighters that he trains that he will give 20 grams of creatine, like 10 to 20 grams of creatine a day leading up to the fight, knowing that there's 100% chance that your brain is going to get jacked around here. So let's
Yeah, right
let's
on.
let's prophylactically load it, and then we'll load it on the back end too. And I started telling the football players that I coach, like during season, you should be upping it to 10 grams a day. As long as you can tolerate it, like up it so that we can. It's got because it's got that prophylactic effect of like protecting yourself prior to. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Again, based on severity, I don't know that that would be 100% like yes, this is necessary, but I would say like the downside is nothing. So
Yeah, no,
yeah.
yeah, I know that there was a big concern with creatine and like your kidney health and stuff like that. But I
That's
mean,
all been debunked. That's all been debunked.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Maybe something I start to institute because he did have a bout of kidney stress for a while, and they pretty much just determined that his the level that his kidneys are operating on now, it's just kind of like the I hate this phrase, but like the new normal of how they work. His enzymes are elevated, but it's not affecting anything. So like they're a little elevated, but there's one marker that his that the kidney doctor said that was still good. He said so just because those are elevated, this is good. He said there's no stress being put on them that's unnecessary. So um, I think I mentioned something to him at the time about creatine, and of course he's a kidney doctor, and he's just like, well, I don't know if I would do that. It's just like, okay, whatever. But
Yeah, that
you know,
that drives me nuts when doctors make those statements because like they're not up to speed on as much as they think they are. And it's like, dude, I know I just read a study on this that said that like and then you reference a study and they're like, well, I never heard of that. Like it's from a peer-reviewed journal, man. Like what like
yeah,
okay, all right. I mean, it's just like cops that don't stay up on case law. Like, oh, I never heard of that. Graham v. Connor. What's the Fourth Amendment? Like, all right, dude. Like, you're terrible at everything. So,
yeah, yeah, for true. Hey, I'm guilty of it, man. I mean, I was telling Kenny the other night, whenever we were, or last night, whenever we were talking, that I'm embarrassed to say that I've learned more case law being out of law enforcement than I ever did in law enforcement because it was at my agency, it was just not something that was stressed really hard, which knowing what I know now, like if I could go back, I would tell myself, hey, idiot, this is important. Do this. Or as a I was a became a patrol sergeant in 2017, and I left in 21. So in that span of time, I would have driven the guys that worked for me to emphasize that as well. So I mean, hindsight's 2020, dude. I mean, it sucks, but it's just how it is. I'm fortunate that I never had any run-ins where that became super important.
well, I mean, a lot of times, like you stay up, like even if you don't read the entire, like the entire case law, like the entire case or whatever, as long as you understand like the prosecutor updates and the basics of it, then like
Right.
you're good. That's all we need to do. We're not at a burden where the Supreme Court has said these guys are cops. They don't have to be lawyers, right? Now, if you can get that knowledge base and become an expert in it, like more power to you. But as long as you understand the prosecutor updates and it's like, oh yeah, this tint law is changing and I don't have the PC for this based on XYZ anymore,
Right.
or like, plain smell from a house is not just kick the door in anymore. Like this is not how we're at.
Darn.
Right. Yeah. So like as long as you understand the basics of it and how it applies to the Fourth Amendment, like you're okay. But like, dude, we had a deputy chief. He's since retired, but he was on the stand. This was probably before I even got on, so like almost 20 years ago. And they asked him like, hey, what is the Fourth Amendment and how does it apply to your job? And he goes, it doesn't apply to my job because he didn't know it. And it was like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that's pretty embarrassing. What if there's a video that was circulating around for a while? I think some cops were in a deposition and they were asking them, what's the difference between arrest and detention, or detaining
Yeah.
somebody and arrest? Like, what's the difference? And they're like, I don't know. It's like, okay, okay.
Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
So
and the sad part is like they know, they just don't know how to articulate it. And that is such a
right.
big deal within the professions. Like you can't find the words to answer this question appropriately or to write this report appropriately. And that's what I heard somebody again the other day say creative report writing. And I was like, create to say creative report writing like that with like air quotes is basically saying like make up some lies. And that's not what that means. It means like you have to articulate how you felt, what you saw, what your perception was, and then tie that to the case law and everything that is we're bound to, right? And
Yeah.
so many cops just don't understand like how to connect those dots. It's
Well, something
painful.
that I would tell, we had our department had a pretty active reserve deputy program for a while. So I was often tasked with, having new reserves come out and train on my troops whenever we'd be working. And when it came to report writing, the I would try to dumb it down as dumb as I could. I'd be like, man, think about painting a picture and what you want someone to see. Like you can just paint a simple picture. For instance, you arrest somebody for public intox, saw drunk, arrested, same. Okay, like will that work? I mean, maybe if they don't fight it, but why don't you paint a more detailed picture and get all the details that led you to believe why they were drunk? What were they doing? What did they smell like? What did their clothing look like? How are they walking? How are they talking? Those kind of things. And the idea of painting a picture just seemed to be a really good analogy, um, to teach them how to do that. So their reports would get better over time. You critique their reports or whatever, and you just got to make people think, because I mean, when it comes to telling a story, I think a lot of people, they leave out a lot of the minutia of what was happening. I'm not saying you got to start every report out by, it was a dark and stormy night, kind of a situation, but you definitely want to be able to articulate your experience, um, without, you know, when you say like how you feel, you kind of need to leave, emotion and stuff out of it. But what did the situation feel like? It made you, um, what was your perception? I guess you could say, the person had their hands in their pockets. They refused to take their hands out of their pockets. So I drew my service weapon out and gave them commands. Totally reasonable, but you got to articulate that. You've got to articulate, you have to build your why. And if you can get other people to understand your why, understand, what you're doing and why you're doing it, um, it's easier to get them on your page.
Yeah.
That's
And
that's
I
that's
would
convincing. That's convincing the jury, or that's convincing the judge. You got to get them to see it from your perspective.
Yeah, but I would go back to what you said about feelings and not including feelings and emotions are very critical to getting people to buy in, right? Because they have to be able to feel, not only see the picture, but feel it and be able to put
Right.
themselves in that context. And if they don't, they're just going to be like, whatever, I'm not that interested in this guy's, like story here. Now your opinions on things,
There you go.
those
That's the word I'm looking
those
for.
those like that's not your job, right? You can have your opinion, but like that's not your job. But your feelings and emotions in that moment are going to dictate and explain why I drew my gun, because my feeling and emotion is that I'm scared of shit. So
Sure.
I'm
Right.
pulling my gun out because I think I might have to shoot this guy because I think I'm going to die, right? Or there's a likely chance that this guy's going to try to hurt me and this is what I need and I'm afraid. And that's okay to say. And people are oftentimes like think that that's a lie. It's like that's not a lie. Every time I pull my gun out, I'm worried I'm going to get shot. That's why it's there.
Yeah. No shit. No. I mean, yeah. I was afraid every single, I would say I was afraid every single night, but you run to a situation,
Yeah.
shit, yeah, I'm afraid,
No,
but it just,
I think that's absolutely accurate. Were you afraid? Yes, I was. I had some semblance of fear and activation of that same sympathetic nervous system that we talked about. You know what I
yeah, it's
mean?
inevitable. It's
Right.
inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Trying to think. I had something good I was going to say and I totally lost it.
I love it when that happens. It's my favorite.
So tell me a little bit about like, let's talk about the business side of things. Like, how did you go from being a cop into Mike Loop and yeah, let's talk about
Yeah. So, I'll try to hit the Cliff's notes of this one because I tend to
that.
over tell this story. But yeah, essentially, man, our product was never, our business was never meant to be a business. My idea for this device that became the mic loop was simply to fix a problem that I was personally having with being able to keep my radio mic attached because it annoyed the shit out of me that with it coming unclipped. I'm sure you've ran into the same problem. I think every cop has ran into the same problem with, you have your radio that's attached to your belt. It's attached by like a coiled wire, and it has your hand mic that you clip. Most cops clip it right here at the shirt or at the shoulder, and it's held on by just like this flimsy ass little plastic clip with a spring, and it's grossly under engineered for what it's supposed to be for. But I had tried to find other products. We're not the only product that does a microphone retention. I mean, there are several other products that do it. The majority of the other products out there rely on your shirt buttons to attach it. Some form of a button to secure it. And I had tried those, and I didn't feel good about the idea of this plastic little circle button securing the device that I needed to call my backup with. Because I mean, if you're like any other person on the planet, you've had a button pop off your shirt in some fashion, and then just putting that added stress of something pulling on it, it just didn't work for me. And I didn't like the way it sat. So I made this janky ass little device one day that stuck to my body armor and hooked it in. I was like, oh wow, cool, this will work. It's good, and just went about my day. One night where we're on night shift, it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, me and my guys and some other small town guys are just chilling out at the gas station talking shit, and brought it up in conversation. Oh, hey, check out this thing I did, and showed the guys, and they're looking at it and they're just going, holy shit, that's awesome. And it became can you make me one of those? Yeah, man, no problem, I've got some extra material at home, so I made these little things. And it started to turn into hey, Tuttle's got this thing that it'll hold your mic. Get him to make you one. Can you make such and such one? And it's like, yeah, you just buy me a Red Bull, or buy me lunch or something like that. It became that exchange, now of not just favors, but an actual exchange of bartering. And so that turned into an idea that I had one day because had several cops in my circle asking for me to make these things for them, and one day I decided to change it up a little bit and actually put it to a sewing machine and sewed it together and made it more strong. And I told my wife one night, I was just like, hey, I think I'm gonna like post these on Facebook and just see what happens. I'm just gonna like say like $5, like if anybody wants one or whatever. So I had some just extra, just trash material. They didn't even look good. I mean, if I can find the picture, I'll send it to you later. They're really hilarious. But made these things together, had a quick little uh, collection of pictures to show how it operated and what it did, and a description. And this is just on my personal Facebook, and so I posted it. And the next morning, man, I had several messages saying, "Oh wow, that's really cool. I've been needing that thing, whatever." And people shared it. And the next thing you know, I've got a bunch of messages on Facebook saying like, "How can I buy this?" So here I am, like with a paper and pen, writing down people's addresses on where to mail it, and like, what's your email address? I'll send you a PayPal,
Yeah.
whatever, and people actually like sending me money. So now I'm obligated to do this, at like $5 a pop. And my wife came home from work that day, 'cause I had the day off, and she's just looking at him like, I don't know what to do. I am totally like, I'm totally overwhelmed with like, 20 people
Yeah.
that wanted this thing. And so she kind of took the ball and ran with it. And she, she thinks about problems way differently than I do. And she built a website around it. She built a point of sale system. She associated with all this stuff, and man, she essentially, um, I guess she built our business off of that product. So I mean, she made it happen. We came up with a name for it. There's obviously a lot of thought that went into the name. The Mike Loop. It's pretty simple, and that's kind of been our thing. Um, about our product is keeping it simple. It's like it's really easy to overcomplicate stuff, And we found a solution that worked and it worked well. It had been field tested, by me personally as well as other guys, and we started marketing it, and it just grew into something. The Initially, when we started making a few sales here and there, it became an idea of like, oh, this is just going to be a great little side hustle. It's not quite some crap we're selling on Etsy or anything like that. It's just we've got our own website and we're selling it. And if we sell this many per month, we can pay for our cable and water bill kind of thing,
Yeah.
And that just became the idea. It's like, cool, we're just going to supplement our income. And at this point, um, maybe a couple of months in, I decided to start reaching out to some other pages and asking them to test it. Reaching out to departments, asking, "Hey, can I send you this? Can you test it?" And a lot of people, I got a lot of no answers. A lot of no responses until I sent a message to uh, probably the biggest Facebook page for law enforcement at the time, Survive the Streets
Hmm.
page for cops. And I got in touch with Chris there. He was the guy that started the page, and he agreed, man. He's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll test it out." He said, "But I'm gonna tell you straight up." He said, "If it sucks, I'm gonna let everybody know how bad it sucks." He's like, I'm gonna give you like an unfiltered review of it." And so it's like, "Cool, dude. Like, you give it to me." And we sent him one. I sent him actually. I think we sent him three. One for him, and then a couple of the other moderators on the page. And a few weeks go by. And next thing you know, he posts this gleaming review of how he tried everything he could to break it. It ended up breaking his radio. It held on tight. He said the only critique that he gave us was that our packaging was trash because at that time we were like putting them in like these little 20 bags,
Yeah.
this little dime sacks with like a sticker on them, and so we had to like we took that feedback and upgraded our packaging a little bit, and we've since changed it again to get a little more professional with it, and from that point it really took off. We started seeing sales coming from all over the country. We thought we were hot shit whenever we had a sale come out of Hawaii because we're like, oh, cool, we've like crossed the ocean,
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
sale. And I mean, since that time, we've been in business for 10 years now. We've sold to all over the world, man. We've I couldn't even begin to give you a number on the amount of mic loops we've sold. Um, and what it translated into for me though, man, was the realization that it kind of changed our mission from making money to actually what it is today, which our only mission now is to, of course, this helps our income tremendously. I mean, it is our source of income. But to me, being a former cop and having spent time with cops, um, my goal is to just make sure the cops are more safe. I'm not sitting here saying that our product alone is going to make sure they get home, but I think that our product adds an element of safety that's going to make sure that they are um, more safe during their shift. I understand because I've personally been in the situation of how critical it is when you're dealing with a situation and you can't communicate.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, your radio is essentially your lifeline to the help that you need. And we started getting um, messages and reviews and stuff from cops, man, that these guys were messaging us, and like the beginning of their message would literally say, "Your product saved my life." And it's just like, holy shit, and they would go into their account of what happened, whether it was fighting with someone, and they were kind of getting their ass handed to them, and they were able to, the only thing they could reach was their mic. We spoke to a cop that was up from the Northeast. He reached out to us, and sent us pictures of his crash. He had a bad crash, and his situation was his car had ran off the road, so you couldn't see it, and nobody knew that he'd even wrecked. And the only thing that he could reach was his microphone that was at his chest. His car mic was off out of the way, so the only thing he could reach was this. Otherwise, nobody would have known where he was at for an undetermined amount of time. And he was able to
Yeah.
call for help. And he was like, "Dude, he's like, your product saved my life."
Huh.
And
That's
so,
awesome.
dude, like you talk about hitting you in the feelers, dude. That was
Yeah.
like that made it very, very real for me, as whenever we started getting those type of messages of the impact that something that we were physically making with our own hands was saving their lives. So that's what continues to drive us, to this day, is to put that out there for guys, and and just to keep it going, dude. That's what matters the most to me about our product.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Um, so at what point did you like feel like, all right, we have a legitimate business here? And then because there's a period of time, obviously, when it's like we have a little hobby, I have a side hustle, I have a real business, I'm making this my full-time gig, and I'm gonna retire. Like, how did that process kind of go?
So I stayed. Let's see. We started our business in 2015, and I left in um, 2021. So I think we realized that we had a legitimate thing was whenever, as I said earlier, my wife, she has some health issues that were worse. She was working full time, I was working full time, and we had our business. I had kids, all the good things, and she decided that it would be more beneficial for her to quit her job and just work on our stuff full time. So when she was able to do that and it didn't hurt us financially, I think we were like, this is legit. This is a real thing. And I stayed working, um, just to kind of keep supplementing our income, because I mean we weren't quite at the point now where we were self-sustaining. I mean we probably could have, but it would have been harder. Um, Plus, I wasn't ready to. I was only, let's see, I started out, became a patrolman in um 2011. Let's see, I started working at the jail in 2007, and I became a patrolman in 2011. So I wasn't ready to hang it up yet. I still wanted to be a cop. I was still enjoying what I was doing. And, plus I think that, at that time, having a product for cops made by cops also added to the legitimacy of our product. So it it's something I wanted to keep doing, but it also supported our business as well. And what drove me to the realization of um, wanting to make it my full time job was when I got sick of working for the people that I was working for. Poor leadership drove me to make that decision of like, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Um, it came to a point where I told my wife I was just under just tons of stress. And I was like, I think I came to her one day and I was like, working for this sheriff is bullshit. When can I quit? And so we had made a plan that a year from that date, I was done. I was just gonna quit. Fast forward, and we made that decision in 2020. I think, know, pre-COVID, we were kind of talking about this. And fast forward, well, let me take that back. It's probably the end of 2020, early 21, whenever we were talking about that, because I left in 21. And we had said by my birthday of 2022, I was going to quit. Um, in 2021, we started having just a lot more instances of poor leadership, and it was very evident that our sheriff didn't have our backs on a lot of things. And there were some use of force situations, a couple that I were directly involved in, that were 100% justified, 100% reasonable. But the sheriff didn't like the optic that it was taking. and there were write-ups for them. There's no legitimate policy violations, but the write-ups consisted of like conduct unbecoming of a deputy or whatever. Just and it was one of those where like, hey, we're writing you up, but it'll be out of your file in 6 months. It's kind of one of those
Yeah.
situations, and it's just kind of like, why are you writing me up? Like I didn't do anything wrong. Why are you writing me up? So they kind of like borderlined on that area of like, you know, hey, we're just doing this for show, but you know, don't take any action against us. It's not going to reflect on you negatively, whatever. So, they're kind of dancing on that line. And, we weren't a unionized agency or anything like that. So if I were to attempt to fight these things, legally, it would be at expense to myself, and they could argue that well, it's just going to come out of your file anyway. It doesn't count against you. So there's just this whole thing, and we all just knew it was bullshit. And I had several other deputies, even seasoned deputies, come up to me and, man, I heard about this. Man, that's such bullshit. That I've lost faith in this agency. The whole thing. Everybody really lost faith in whether or not the administrators would have our backs. And the straw that broke the camel's back was, it was well known that we had this business. We had our social media up and running. Our social media was just like in full steam. Our page was growing, and I had made some comments about pedophiles publicly, and it was taken in a bad light, and I got called into an internal on my comments. And yeah, basically, and here's how it shook down. I think I was in a conversation with somebody about events that were public at the time. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and all these other law enforcement shootings. And what had ended up happening is, I made these comments. I said, "Hey, look, nobody deserves to die." I said, "Nobody deserves to die. The fact that these people, they died during these instances, it's a direct result of their own actions, and went into the whole argument of how law enforcement is reactive when it comes to use of force and things like that. Cops respond to other people's actions. And I said, nobody deserves to die. And then I said, well, except pedophiles. Pedophiles deserve to die, and that's how I still believe to this day. I mean, it's just, I think that that's kind of a common, I would hope that that's kind of a common thread, but I'm not sitting here saying that like my sheriff supports pedophiles or anything, but definitely didn't like that I put that out there in some of the comments that I'd made. What further reinforced this situation is that while that instance wasn't immediately known to them, the comments were screenshot and recorded and sent to my agency by an outside source. What happened to be some Antifa supporting kid from Portland, just some random dickhead on social media.
Yeah, some troll.
Decided,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he said, hey, here's the opportunity. I'm going to get this guy in trouble.
Right.
So basically, he cooks up this long-winded email saying that I was promoting murder and that I was racist, of course, and all this other stuff, when it was clear that I was not talking
Racist.
about that.
Racist.
Yeah,
Racist
yeah.
about pedophile. Did he reference stats on who the pedophiles are that you wanted, that like based on demographics and race and gender and all that? Like, I bet he didn't have any of that. He just made blanket bullshit comments, and then people were like, "Yeah, like you're in trouble now."
Yeah,
Like,
I don't think he had access to that
nonsense.
stuff. I
Right.
don't think he had
Yeah.
access to
Or he's an idiot and he's just spouting off at the mouth. And
Correct.
instead of saying, "Hey, maybe we should just not listen to idiots," like we're gonna entertain this guy with his bullshit and his nonsense. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Their idea behind it was that, well, this guy's got this information, he could put it out there and blah blah blah. So the optic,
Put it out there.
the
Let him.
the yeah,
Who
bring it,
cares?
bitch, bring it, bitch. I promise you, in our area of Arkansas, everybody's going to agree with me.
Right.
You know,
Right.
but yeah, nonetheless, though, they didn't like the way that they said that represented the sheriff's office, because, like, you know, it was very public on our page. I made tons of content in uniform, like using our uniform to demonstrate our product and stuff. So I mean, it was apparent. I mean, that's how this dickhead found out where I worked, because back when we first started, um, it's really cool actually. When we first started, a local news agency caught wind of what I was doing, and they were like, "Cool, can we do a segment about you and your product?" So if you look up my name and the mic loop right now, the one of the first things that's going to come up is Channel 5 News report of our product, and it tells where I work and all this other stuff. So he's able to find that information super fast,
Yeah.
and and so that gets sent. They didn't like it, and they drew me into an internal, and I was just like, you know what, like fuck this, bro. Like,
Yep.
peace. Like
Yep.
I told my wife, I was like, hey, I think I'm ready to quit. And she's just like, okay, like not really prepared at this time, but we
Yeah.
pulled the ripcord, and I dipped out, man. I mean, it was literally like that happened on a Friday. I was not at work by Monday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
That's fast.
and they were coming and picking up my patrol car like that Monday, and like all my shit in it. Like I literally thought about like locking the keys in the car kind of situation and telling them to go fuck themselves, but I didn't. My lieutenant at the time, he came, and I respected him. He came and picked up the car and whatever. But yeah, I mean, my 14-year career ended just like that. And what's crazy, and this is something that I used to tell the guys that worked for me all the time, was that you know this place doesn't care about you. Like
Yeah.
uh, every cop that starts, and even guys that have been there for a long time, they get that inherent sense that this place can't run without me. They need me. I'm important and everything. But I would tell them, I'm like, this place doesn't care about you.
Yeah.
They just get to get that out of your head. There's no brotherhood. The only brotherhood is what we have here, working together. Like I've got your back, you've got mine. Period. But this agency as a whole, like they will chew you up and spit you out, and this machine will run as soon as you leave. It's going to keep going, and if you got killed today, there's going to be somebody jonesing for your job before the ink is wet or the ink is dry on your death certificate.
Yeah.
That's what I would tell them straight up, and that's exactly what happened, man. You had people chomping at the bit for a new sergeant position that was open. I mean, just like, hey,
Yeah.
hey, can I have his car? Can I have his car? Like all of
Right.
that, and it's just they had my position filled like I had never even been there.
Vultures.
So yeah, yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah, I think we talked about that a little bit. It's like, and that's once you figure that out, it's super disappointing. But at the same time, once you understand, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. And it's like that in Arkansas. It's like that where I'm at. It's like that where in New York or out east or out west. It doesn't matter. The agencies themselves are not designed to care about you. They can't. And they're not supposed to. Now we are supposed to care about each other, right? That's where like people say the blue line brotherhood is dead or it's bullshit or whatever. And it's like, no, it's not. It is fully alive with the people. Like you just have to be able to see it for where it
Right.
is. And once you do
Yeah.
that, it's almost freeing because you're like, oh, when somebody gets promoted to a command position, they no longer are designed to care about me. And it's kind of like, well, from a personal standpoint, it's kind of disappointing. But from a structure standpoint, it's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Like I understand your politics are going to be more important than our relationship. I get it. You know what I mean? Like you're part of uh the system now. You're part of the machine, and the machine is not designed to care about me on a personal level. But on a good point, it's good because like I've been off for a few weeks now for a month with neck surgery, and like so I'm not part of our SWAT team. I'm not on the road, and like nothing happened bad because I wasn't there. That's actually really good because I know my friends aren't going to be impacted by me taking
Mhm.
another 4 weeks to heal. So like that's a good thing. And that way I have time where when I do want to retire, I can move into something else and like that structure is going to keep working, you know? So
Mhm.
it's kind of like good and bad, I guess.
Yeah, I think understanding that, you're the guys that either work with you or for you, they're totally capable as well.
Yeah.
And I think that comes into like a mutual respect thing of just like, oh, you can handle this, you've got it while I'm out. Touching on what you were saying as far as like promoting to a leadership position. I think you guys covered it on a different podcast. Discussing how strong leaders moving into those other positions. So that's one thing I was talking about to uh to Kenny was how, in my opinion, being a patrol sergeant was like the sweet spot of law enforcement, because you can still do you can still do cop shit, but you also are the barrier between administration and your guys on the street, and your sole job as a patrol sergeant is not to be the boss or be in charge, but is to support your subordinates. Like, that's your job, is like, all of don't you go do your job, I'll take the fallout. You let me deal with the upper stuff with brass and administration, and I will make sure none of that falls onto you, and I will make sure that you get all of the things and opportunities that you need, and that's the standpoint that I took from it, and that's how I tried to lead my troop. But the rough part is those strong sergeants rarely promote higher, because they don't fit the mold that the upper administrators want. They want somebody who's going to agree. They want somebody who's going to fall in line. They don't want someone who's going to necessarily oppose what they're doing if it doesn't work for the guys that are actually boots on the ground doing the work. And I think that, when you do have strong leaders that do promote into those upper positions, your captains and lieutenants, and even maybe even chiefs or assistant chiefs, if they can maintain that mindset of, you know, yeah, my job is up here, but because I'm in this position, I have more influence on what happens. I'm going to make sure that what happens fully supports the people that are below me, and if you can keep that perspective of that your actions need to support what they're doing, not just telling them what to do, I think that makes all the difference. Unfortunately, like, I didn't really have a lot of that. My LT, he was pretty good about keeping that in perspective, but above him, it went to the wayside. But you know, uh, it sucks, man. It sucks that you don't have these big Sarge characters that that promote past that very much, or if they ever really do, a lot of times they get kind of caught up in the bullshit and change.
Yeah, it's hard to be surprised by it, and it's hard to like. I don't even get upset by it anymore. It's like, oh, this dude was a team member on our SWAT team, and now let's say he gets promoted, and this is just hypothetical. So I don't want somebody to come back and be like, you were talking about
Sure.
this person. Like, I'm not. But it's like the entire dynamics change. It all changes. So it's like from a from that standpoint, it's like, okay, well, I guess this is just kind of like par for the course. But I will say that the dynamics that really need to be addressed and looked at from developing a leadership, like a real leadership hierarchy, is merit ranks versus political appointments. Like
Sure.
that is where I see it fall apart. Where it's like, all right, most departments that I've and dudes I've talked to, it's like once you get outside of like one level of merit promotion, the rest is like maybe a lieutenant spot, but like sergeant you test for, and you get promoted based on merit, and then lieutenant, and or maybe one other rank up, but all the rest are all just like, hey, I like you, you're my buddy, and I'm going to put you in this captain spot, or I'm going to put you in this chief spot, or I'm going to put you here, or the mayor really likes you here. And they just jockey it all around. I don't even think people have to do resumes for that kind of stuff. They're just like, it's all
Yeah.
backdoor deals and handshakes. And it's like,
Yeah.
if that's how it's going to operate, like then you're going to have is the good old boy system that everybody bitches about, or the DEI system that everybody bitches about. Like it's kind of the same. So if this is where you're going to have things, and it's going to be based on political appointment, like is what it is, man. It's all politics. So
Yeah.
then the real question for leadership is how does a frontline supervisor like you were and like you're describing, how do you filter that out and maintain like the motivation and desire to do the job the way it needs to be for the patrol level guys,
Yeah.
because you have to be the filter and you have to be the funnel and you have to kind of like protect them from the political
Mhm.
trash so that we can go out and do the job, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever, but prior to me becoming a patrol sergeant, I started doing a deep dive into leadership and wanting to learn more about it. I had no knowledge of leadership. I hadn't really had a ton of great examples on how to be a good leader. At the time, I was the corporal on my troop, and I had a sergeant who he's a weak supervisor, man. He wouldn't make decisions, and he let his ego lead the way. A lot of times, he let his stripes like walk into the room before he did. You know what I'm saying? And uh, I was very frustrated having to essentially lead the troop from my position and then be maybe overrun by his authority over whatever. So I became very frustrated in that position the first time. But this was the first time that I was like ready to quit. I was super ready to walk away from the job at that point. But I, realized that hey, I need to do something different. So I started doing a deep dive into leadership, and Jocko Willink was really big at the time. So got his book, listened to his book a few times, started listening to his podcast a lot, and what you're talking about right here, it reminds me of a situation that he had to deal with or that he described in his book, and he just refers to it as you got to play the game.
Yeah.
You have to play the game because you've got to stroke those, you got to lead up the chain of command, you got to stroke those egos and do all that shit, but your purpose is to serve the guys that are working under you. Hey, I'm gonna and if you can make the people that work under you understand, like, hey, this sucks, but we've got to do this thing. I know these people are trying to micromanage us, but why are they trying to micromanage us? Maybe we need to do a better job at explaining what we're doing to them so they understand and that we are capable of doing the job, whatever the job may be. But also, hey, I'm going to give these clowns what they want so we can get what we want and need and do what we need to do, and operate how we need to do. So, I think that if you can maintain that. I mean, like dude in his book he talks about, he's over his task unit. He's his lieutenant commander or whatever, so he's the big dog over this group, but he also has to report to a higher command. Same thing with a patrol sergeant or even like a lieutenant. You are over this section, but you still have to report to a higher command. So what can I do to keep them happy so we can get what we need to do our job? And that's the delicate balance of leadership, man. Is being able to walk that line but still serve the people that work for you and not get caught up in the shit.
Yeah.
So
I think within law enforcement context is well, there's two things there to kind of that jumped out at me. It's like what is the ongoing mission? Because we get so day to day and we get so just like, yeah, this is what we do. We go
mhm.
out on patrol, we do stuff. But like, what is our purpose and our mission? And we have to like continue to kind of refine that and come back to it. And like, I've been on 17 years and I don't think I've ever been told that when I was in just operations like road patrol. We've never had that. I've never had a leader come and tell us like, this is our mission as we patrol. This is what we want to do when we're taking calls. These are our goals and our metrics and our stats. Like we have like evaluations and stuff, but like it's not that. It's not the goals of the quadrant or their department or the division, like nothing like that. Now, specialized units, we would have those discussions, gang unit vice, stuff like that. SWAT, like that in those spots we talk about it, but like for day-to-day road patrol operations, like never even had that conversation. So
Yeah, absolutely.
how can you expect people to be on the same page with anything? You know?
Yeah, I think it kind of comes down to, you can keep it as simple as you can equate knowing your mission to knowing your why. It's the reason why you're doing it. And if you can give your troops, I keep saying the word troops, that's what we used to refer to our patrol units as the troop. But if you can give your people, you know, boundaries to operate at, hey, here's the overall goal. This is what we want to accomplish. And you have these boundaries to do it in. Do whatever you need to do to accomplish a mission as long as you stay within those boundaries. I mean, the amount of freedom that gives these guys to operate in, I mean, that equates in motivation, drive, happiness, satisfaction of like, cool, you trust me to do whatever I need to do, as long as I operate within these parameters, cool. I know what I can and can't do. It's very clear, and I get to just go do work.
Yeah.
And as long as you have that mission inside of, you know, we're going to operate within these boundaries to accomplish this goal, I think that everybody um, can gain tremendous satisfaction. I think you'll keep up, a healthy and happy crew doing that. I mean, it's I've worked at jobs, man, before when like, I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm here, I'm getting a paycheck, and like, cool, like I'm getting a paycheck for doing essentially nothing, but there's no satisfaction. The money,
Right.
the money doesn't bring you happiness. The it's accomplishing tasks and goals, and that success for a bigger purpose. I think that's what it kind of comes down to, is like, what is that bigger purpose?
Yeah.
We all need it. Even guys when they leave the military, they have a mission when they're in the military. They have a purpose, a drive, and something to work towards. And then when they get out of the military, they're just like, what do I do now? I need to find a new mission. So yeah, absolutely. Understanding what that mission is really critical. And it's going to take it's going to take good leaders to identify that, and then put action in place to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing that I don't want to get super in depth on, because we've been talking for like an hour and a half now. But relationship building, like you look at Jocko's stuff that he talks about, and when you break all of it down, like all of his stuff and all of the war stories and everything, it's about relationships. Like leadership is about building, maintaining
Hmm.
relationships with people.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. You know, and there's all kinds of different aspects that come into that, communication. I mean, if we want to go down the Jocko rabbit hole, I'm more than happy to, but but that's its own monster in itself. But I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I think that you have to understand yourself and your own limitations. You understand your own ego and things like that, and 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 being a part of that. But yeah, relationships. That's the biggest thing, is what it ultimately boils down to. And I mean, you could take that a step further in, from a law enforcement point of view. You know, relationships with your community, with the criminal element, and the people you work with, the people that don't like you, you know, all those things. Eh, it's those relationships and how you handle them. I mean, you can use leadership tactics in every single one of those scenarios. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Well, cool, man. I think that's a good place to break. I could probably talk to you all day about police work and business
Oh
and stuff
yeah,
like that. So we should definitely do this again if you're up for it.
yeah, totally, man, absolutely.
So like give us a rundown. Where can people find more about you and the Mike Loop and anything else you got going on?
Okay. Well, the easiest place to find information about us is social media, Facebook and Instagram. Our handle is at the Mike Loop, TheMicLoop, and our website is themikeloop.com. Um, Basically, all of our information is there. You can find us on Amazon if you shop Amazon. If you don't feel like buying off a website, we're on Amazon, and that's where you can find our product. And about me personally, I mean, you can find out all you need to know off of off of our social media. I guess I'm pretty open about it. If you like cool memes,
Yes.
there's plenty of cool memes on our page. It's a really good filler for time, is to make cop memes and stuff like that. That's a whole nother conversation. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's where you can find us. If they have any questions, they can email us from the website or contact us. I'm pretty responsive with DMs too if they have any questions.
Cool. Well, sweet, man. Well, I appreciate your time and let me know if you need anything, and I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Anthony. Thanks, man.
See ya.
See you.